Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And probably the most important event is coming not from Ukraine but about Ukraine, but this event is coming from the NATO countries. According to information we have, the NATO countries are planning to start military exercises within the next few weeks, and these military exercises is going to take place for the next few months till the beginning of May. So around 90,000 soldiers will be involved in this operation, and once again this operation will be ended somewhere in May. What does it mean? First of all, you need to understand, and I'll remind you that every time the conflict and something happened in Ukraine during 2014 or 2015 or different episodes and different situations, the Russians were holding something like military exercises on the board. What does it mean? First of all, this allows you to concentrate significant number of forces on the border, and if everything goes wrong, you can always use these forces on the ground. So as I understand, these military exercises on the border with Ukraine, in Baltic states, in eastern part of Poland is just the plan B. If something goes wrong with Ukraine, if the United States of America are not able to provide Ukrainians some military aid, if the Russians are able to collapse the Ukrainian defense belt, to defeat the Ukrainians, to penetrate defense belt and to capture significant territories, then the Western countries probably will move their forces to the western part of Ukraine. So, and as you can see, the military exercises are going to take place till the beginning of May, till the period of time of possible Ukrainian summer offensive operation somewhere in Zaporozhye. So very interesting. We'll follow these military exercises, but once again, very likely, if everything goes bad for the Ukrainians, these forces will enter the western part of Ukraine. Now we are moving to the situation on the ground. We have a lot of very interesting details, and let's start from the Kupiansk area. According to information we have, the Russians launched significant offensive operation on a very large front line starting from Sinkovka and ending somewhere in the vicinity of Krakhmalnaya, Vladimirovka. The Russians attacking at some points, at some front lines, they managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt, and according to some sources, the length of the depth that the Russians managed to break is up to 1 kilometer. Other sources, like military expert reported that the Russians also launched an offensive operation from Vladimirovka in direction of Tabayevka and in direction of Krakhmalnaya, and the main purpose of this attack is to cut the N26 road that connects, let's say, main land Kotlerovka, Berestova, Novoselovka. And according to the Russians, they managed to establish control over the road to cut supply and support of Ukrainians in Krakhmalnaya, and very likely within the next few days they will renew their offensive with the purpose to establish control over Krakhmalnaya. This is very important village because for now the Russians don't have a very strong bridgehead in this area, so that's why, as I understand, they will change their focus and they will try to let's say maintain and to shorten the combat line between Krakhmalnaya and Novoselovska. They need to do this in order to establish control and to move further in direction of Berestova. So this area is under very heavy clash. The Ukrainians started FPV drone strikes against the Russian forces immediately as soon as they managed to discover some activity of Russian forces. On this video we see another Russian truck with infantry that was landed in this area, and Ukrainians started hunting the Russians. To the south, almost the same story. The Russians were starting offensive operation, and the Ukrainians with FPV drones start bombing and attacking the Ukrainian tanks. So this is another area of activation of clashes from the Russian side, and we are talking about the line between Kislovka, Kotlerovka to Novoselovska. So the global direction, the global purpose of the Russians is to move in direction of Kruglyakivka, Sinkova, the bridge that connects one bank of Skol River with another. Now we are moving to the south. We haven't received anything from Liman, from Vysyola area. The only important thing, the military experts like Ribur reported that not just Ribur but also soldiers on the ground are saying that Vysyola is located on the lowland, and if the Russians want to, let's say, get better results and to achieve significant results in this area, they need to continue offensive operation further in direction of northwest, in direction of Razdolovka, and to capture the hills and the tree lines in this area, which will allow the Russians to establish complete control over the territory. Now we are moving further. The battle for Bogdanovka continues. Bogdanovka, Ivanovska, Chasov Yar. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians published video of FPV drone strikes, of anti-tank missile strikes against the Ukrainian forces in the line between Orekhovo, Vasilievka, Grigorovka, the area of responsibilities of 56th Motorized Brigade. As you can see, at least on this video, 2 armored vehicles were destroyed. On this video, we can see another Ukrainian anti-tank position that was also destroyed. Most of the mappers have already updated the territories around the 215.7 hill. Today we got the same update either from more reliable sources like Syriac, as I understand. Yes, he confirmed the progress of the Russians in this area. For now, we are not going to change the color of territory because of absence of any geolocated confirmation, but we are keeping in our mind that the Russians are moving further and the Ukrainian defense in this area scrambled. Now we are moving to AVDF. We have a lot of very interesting details from this territory, and the most important are coming from the southern part. Let's say, Syriac confirms or reports that the Russians launched their offensive operation from Yasinovata, from Donetsk, in direction of the southern part of Avdiivka, and as a result of that attack, the Russians managed to enter some buildings and some, say, fortifications in the industrial area, and not industrial, but in the residence area from this side. So the clashes in this area renewed. The Russians got a very long operational pause, and now they started clashes. This is like the area. So according to mappers, the Russians are advancing something like this. As you can see, the Russians are not attacking this territory from the industrial zone. They're trying to attack from the south. Very interesting details and very interesting updates are coming from Rybar, and this is very important, probably the most important update. You know that he is the only mapper who shows a very huge advance, very big advance of the Russians on the eastern part of Avdiivka. And according to Rybar, the fields and forest tree lines in this area were captured by the Russians during the previous weeks or months of clashes. And now he's saying, Rybar says, that the Russians enter the residential area on the east from the northern direction. He reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to enter 2 streets, and we are talking about Kolosova and Livanevskova Street. If we return back to the map, we're gonna see that this is Livanevskova Street. This is it. I will add this on map for better understanding. This is Livanevskova Street, and this is Kolosa Street. Now the Ukrainians call this street Kirova by Kirova, but it used to be Kolosa Street. So according to Rybar, the Russians somehow managed exactly the edge positions of this territory, and currently the Russians have some, let's say, foothold and bridgehead in this area. Very interesting, because according to the most of the mappers, the territory that located to the east of this foothold is under complete Ukrainian control. If the Russians manage to get there, that means that probably this territory, let's say this one, is under Russian control. Very interesting update. We need more details, more, let's say, information to confirm this or not. But anyway, I'll remind you that probably months ago, Rybar has already reported that this territory is under Russian control. But since that time, since ever, we haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation of Russian progress in this forest. So very interesting details, but because if it's true, if the Russians entered Livanevskova and Kolsa Street from this side, that means that Ukrainian positions, let's say in this area, appeared in something like operational encirclement. And there are very powerful stronghold and significant number of Ukrainians, and now they might be encircled by the Russian attack from the north to the west, and of course from the south to the northwest, from industrial area along the same Kolosa Street, and from this forest along Kirova and Kirova, Kolos and Livanevskova as well. So the situation is getting worse, as I understand. We'll see what is going to be next. More details and updates we're receiving from Pervomayskaya area. From Pervomayskaya, today we got another video how the Russian reconnaissance and sabotage groups destroyed another Ukrainian stronghold with grenades or with bomb. If you remember, just a few days ago we got the same video, probably from the same squad. The Russian soldiers managed to mine the Ukrainian fortification and to blow it up, and based on that video we have updated, most of the mappers have updated their maps showing the Russians Russian progress. And today we see another video from the same Syria. The Russian soldier, as you can see, he's moving on the ground, mined and established explosive below or near the Ukrainian fortification, and after that he blown the Ukrainian fortification up. So what does it mean? This is the original position of Russian soldier where he started his movement. He moved to this area and then he mined this territory and the building was destroyed. So according to this geolocation, we might say that at least this part of let's say Pervomayskaya area probably very likely under Russian control. But different mappers are saying that the Russians have better progress, huge advance, that most of Pervomayskaya area that according to military summary map in gray zone, according to different mappers is under Russian control. So according to some mappers, this part of Pervomayskaya either under Russian control. For now, we are not going to change the map, just the area of explosion and the Russian sabotage group work, because we have geolocation, but probably most of this territory is already under the Russians. We haven't received anything from Novomikhailivka, Marinka. We have just geolocations of bombings of Ukrainian positions to the north of Volodymyrovka. We know that the Russians are moving to the west from Solotka, and it's logical development of the situation. The Russians continue their movements and they're attacking the Ukrainians in their flank. To be more precise, the forces of 72nd Mechanized Brigade. So as I understand, today we're going to receive more updates from this territory. We also start receiving more updates from Robotyne area. Today the Russians launched another offensive operation, or the first attempt or reinforce in direction of Robotyne itself. We don't have any updates about the results of that attack. The only thing we have is some geolocations that were published by the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians, as soon as they discovered the Russian attack, start bombing and attacking the Russian forces with FPV drones, with grenades. On this video we see a Russian armored vehicle moving to the north. The situation in this area is very complicated, but anyway, we have geolocations confirming the Russian progress and the first attempt of the Russian attack in Robotyne. For now, we don't have the results of that attack, but obviously these days we're going to receive some updates and we're going to understand the better picture. Furthermore, the Ukrainian sources reported that the Russians launched their offensive operation from Krynki to Zaporozhye and from Krynki to Kupiansk direction, and the Ukrainians are saying that on the front line from Toretsk to Kamenskaya is to the west from Bradley Square. The Russian use around 160,000 soldiers during offensive operation. On AVDF direction, according to the Ukrainians, there are around 40,000 Ukrainian soldiers. So the clashes are very heavy, and the Russians' goal is to penetrate the Ukrainian defense belt before the NATO countries are going to start their military trainings and exercises. When talking about Krynki, the sources are saying that the clashes in this area continues. We have some update from the Ukrainian side, which confirmed by the Russians that during the last offensive operation, during the last attempt to clear this area, and according to some sources, there are still around 80 soldiers from the Ukrainian side who are concentrated along the bank of the Kazachila-Gerska-Konka river. The Russians were trying to clear the territory, and the Ukrainians discovered the Russian movements and started bombing and attacking them. And as a result of those attacks, the Russians probably lost 2 or 3 FPV drone operator squads. Very important asset was destroyed during the previous attack that took place probably yesterday or maybe the day before yesterday. So as you can see, the situation is getting worse and worse, and the NATO military exercises is the evidence of that. So we'll see how this situation is going to affect the situation in Ukraine. The next also let's move a little bit to the Red Sea, to the Middle East, and according to information we have yesterday, the proxy Iranian forces managed to shut down the United States MQ Global Hawk, MQ Reaper. And as a result, this is on this video, we can see how that drone was shot down, MQ-9, and how he crashed. Later we got some details and some pictures, the footage of destroyed parts of destroyed MQ Reaper. And this is very interesting because this is, of course, there are a lot of type of these units, drones in the United States of America, a lot of bases. But if the first drone was shot down, probably there are going to be more. And as we can see, the Iran, Iraq, and Syrian forces, many Iranian forces, are trying to force the United States of America to leave this area and to abandon their bases. Furthermore, the Houthi continued their attacks against the ships in the Red Sea, and today some sources have calculated the number of attacks and number of the ships that were damaged, significant number. And for example, since the November 19th, the Houthis have attempts to launch missiles, airborne and naval drone attacks, and board civilian vessels operating in the region, or a total of 41 times. So significant number. And as I understand, Houthi is going to continue their attacks. And for example, also there was another analysis of how many drones were sent and how many of them the United States of America managed to shut down, and which ships were involved. Anyway, the situation in this area continues to develop not in a very good way, and obviously sooner or later Houthi forces will start receiving more powerful weapon, and I think that situation in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden can repeat the same story as the Russian cruiser Moscow, the situation that took place in the Black Sea, because sooner or later one missile will get the target, and then the situation can develop in completely unpredictable way. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.